Alrighty, welcome. So today we're going to be having a look at the Consumer Price Index, or CPI as it's better known. Now, what it is, it's a method of measuring how much things are in the economy. And in particular, it's measuring the inflation in an economy. And what it's trying to do is see whether things have grown or shrunk over time. Now, that's what we call inflation. So inflation means that in one year, things are going to be costing a different amount than in another year. So if something goes up in value, well, that would be positive inflation. Not necessarily a good thing, but if things are going up, that's inflation is increasing. And if things are losing value, then that would be depreciation or deflation. And so when the prices are rising, we call that inflation because the prices are inflating. They're getting bigger. When they inflate a balloon, it gets bigger. So it's prices increasing over time. Now, some things don't change price, right? There's currently, if you go to Woolies or Coles, you can buy $2 or $3 milk. That's always going to be the case. If you buy $2 for 2 litres, you're always going to get that. Other things do change in price. For example, petrol. Fuel stations constantly show what the prices are, and sometimes they're going up and sometimes they're going down. Inflation means that across the entire economy in a country, in our case Australia, prices for goods are increasing, which means that it's getting more expensive to be around. So CPI is a way of measuring that, which basically says, well, for the average consumer, when they buy something, how much more is it than a previous year? So what does the question actually look like? Alrighty, so let's calculate the CPI for 2020 and 2021. So in this table, it shows the quarterly. Each of these is a quarter, 3 months of the year, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Each of these are representing a single quarter. And it's asking us to calculate the CPI for that. Now, each of these is a percentage, basically saying that this is 2.6% increase in this quarter. In this quarter, it's a 3.4%, but we generally don't write the percentage. But it is assumed in a CPI table that all of these are percentages. We just don't write it. So the CPI for 2020, how do we actually calculate it? Well, it's just the average of the 4 quarters. So it's going to be 2.6 plus 3.4 plus 3.1 plus 2.1, and we're just going to average those up. So in order to average, we're going to divide them all by 4, which is going to give us 0.8%. So over the year 2020, the average increase in prices was 2.8. So it's 2.8% increasing of costs. The CPI for 2021 is going to be the average of those quarters. So 4.0 plus 3.8 plus 3.8 plus 4.1 and over 4. And this is going to be equal to, 4.1. 15.7 over 4. 3.925, but as you can see, I've rounded to 1 decimal place above, so I'm going to round to 1 decimal place as well. So since the next digit was at 2, I'm going to round down to 3.9%. So those are the CPIs for 2020 and 2021. Now, what does this actually tell us? Well, the Reserve Bank wants inflation around 3%, okay? That's what the Reserve Bank wants. And the Reserve Bank of Australia is the governing body in Australia about it. So you can see in CPI of 2020 that it's close, but it's a little bit under. So in order to compensate that, when it's actually below there, they're actually going to lower the interest rates. So in the first year, the Reserve Bank wants it around there. So here they're going to because this is less than 3%, their job is going to be to lower interest rates. Now, in this case, it's actually bigger than 3%. It's too much. So in that case, they're going to raise interest rates. Now, interest rates are what you borrow money from a bank from, or what you get for putting money into a savings account. And so these will fluctuate over time as the cost of living, how much it costs to buy your groceries and everything, changes. And you can see even just in these two quick examples that with not that great deal of percentage changes, that a lot of change could happen from a governing body like the Reserve Bank. And so the other thing to think about then is what does it mean for the average person? Like this is all to do with like a big governing body, right? Like these aren't what average people are thinking about. Instead, imagine you go to the groceries to get a basket, right, of goodies. You know, you're going to the supermarket and what you have bought costs a total of, let's say, $150, right? This is your weekly shop, whatever it may be. And the question is, if it costs you $150 at the start of 2020, what will it cost at the end? Well, we can have a think about it, right? In 2020, prices increased by 2.8%. So we would expect that the price here would also increase by 2.8%. I'm using the 2020 figure because we are doing this from the start of 2020 to the end of 2020. So that matches the 2020 growth. So all I need to do is a percentage increase. So that's 100 plus 2.8 over 100 times 150. And that's going to give us the percentage increase, which means that after only 1 year, what cost $150 is now going to cost $154.20, which, since it's 2.8%, that's actually a little bit less increase than the Reserve Bank actually wants. But that's for the Reserve Bank to worry about. So just make sure you're good on. In order to calculate CPI, it's just the average of each of the quarters. The Reserve Bank will change it depending on this 3% number. So if it's less than 3%, if CPI is less than 3%, they're going to lower interest rates. And if it's bigger than 3%, they're going to raise interest rates. And if it's about 3%, they're going to keep things relatively the same. So they shouldn't change it too much. Alrighty, so that's CPI. See you in the next one.